You're listening to Financial Advisor Marketing, the best show on the planet for financial advisors who want to get more clients without all the stress. You're about to get the real scoop on everything from lead generation to closing the deal. James is the founder of theadvisorcoach.com, where you can find an entire suite of products designed to help financial advisors grow their businesses more rapidly than ever before. Now, here is your host, James Pollard.
Financial advisors, welcome to another episode of the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast. This is the second episode of 2024, and I am on a mission to make this the absolute best year you've ever had in your entire life. And we're kicking things off with a bang because I have Nancy Bleeke Noel, and we are going to chat all things sales, including mistakes financial advisors make when selling, the best techniques that advisors should use when selling, and just how to revamp and build on your existing sales process, because I know that's where a lot of financial advisors need help. So I'm going to let Nancy take it from here. She is going to introduce herself, and we are going to dive into this thing. So Nancy, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Absolutely. So I'm a sales growth consultant, meaning that I help advisors, first of all, help reframe their mindset around selling, that it's not a negative, dirty word, manipulative, etc. And then work on the processes and the how-tos, the skills for being successful in their conversions. So I have a passion because I have been a recipient of a wonderful financial advisor for 30 years. And I know the value advisors bring to their clients. And so my part in helping that happen is to help the advisors help more people. So that's why I do what I do. And to get, I had negative connotations about selling myself. I ran from anything that seemed like it might be a sales job after college, and at a detriment, I think, to myself, the solutions and gifts that I have to offer. And so I always say I love to work with the people who are reluctant sellers, because it doesn't have to be a bad thing if you're doing it with the right intentions and approach.
Why do you think people are reluctant to embrace sales?
It's lifelong messages that, the sales guy, if someone talks about the sales guy, it's never a compliment.
Sure. I guess that makes sense.
Think about that. Every show, every movie that has a salesperson in it, they're a shyster. They're not the person you're going to, take home and whatever. And so I think, and I always say, like, in my world, the person that in my world that was a salesperson was our insurance guy, who was like a family member and never did anything damaging, but actually helped out, things. But every time his name came up, my dad called him Louis the Thief. And so these little messages that we get our whole life do not tell us, hey, sales is what you should be doing. Sales is a part of everything. And so that's why I think is we have these negative connotations. And so many people are, especially people in helping professions like financial advice, are afraid they're going to look like they're putting someone at a disadvantage and them at an advantage. And they want to be a helper, not a salesperson. But real selling is, selling is simply helping somebody else get the information and the validation they need to make a confident decision about something. And so in the actual sales process of converting prospects is one thing, but also as an advisor, we're always selling because we're once we have clients, we're trying to help them make decisions. We're trying to help them make change sometimes. We're helping them take action on things. And that is officially selling. And because we're helping them do something.
So I agree with you. And I can't really speak from experience. I don't think I've had many limiting beliefs about selling, but then again, maybe so, because I don't consider myself an exceptional salesperson, despite being told that. What are some ways that you get people over that hump where you can get them to shift their mindset to realize, hey, selling is about helping people?
It's not one thing, right? There's not a magic wand to make that happen. It's through discussing what selling really is. It's through giving them tools and an approach and how to guide conversations where they can see they're not manipulating and instead they're aligning themselves. I say if we do everything from our marketing, like that you talk about, to the actual interactions and conversations with the mindset of we're here to make it easy for them. We're here to make everything what's in it for them. Like we have to connect every piece of information. And that's what you do with good content and such. We have to connect that into here's why this is important to you. Here's what the benefit, the outcome is of you without hitting them over the head with it. But as we look at the approach, as we look at how to guide and lead a good sales conversation to mutually beneficial outcome, the mindset starts shifting. And then they start seeing how when they show up, they don't show up as a salesperson, they're showing up as a problem solver and a helper. And the first help that advisors need to provide is to help that person make a decision to work with somebody.
Ooh, that's something I do in marketing quite a bit. That's super important.
Yeah. One advisor said, he goes, the thing that I learned in working with you was that I'm not one person when I'm selling and another person when I'm an advisor. It's the same. And so that's how. So, I say we need to focus on what does it mean to have a successful sale, right? It's not us getting a client with them in shackles and we're pulling them along. If we're collaborating and working alongside them through that decision-making process, we get to this win, which is they are winning because they're going to get you, right? They get your services, your solution, your attention. They get confidence in what they're doing, validation, less stress, all of those things. You win because not only is there revenue and income associated with it, but you get to use your expertise, which so many people want to, right? They get to provide that service that they want to. And then I say, but that's not it. The third part of it is the company wins. And whether you're solo or in a firm, the company wins because the company does need revenue. The company does need to have clients that they can learn from, that they can provide for, that they can build from, which helps more people be confident in working with that person in that company. And so if all of our endeavors are focused on what's in it for them and achieving what I call the win cubed, the company, the client, then how is that negative?
I don't think it is. And I think you're describing what I would call like consultative selling, where the advisor is just being a consultant and guiding someone through the process. Would you agree that that's a fair assessment?
Actually, I say it's more than consultative selling. It's collaborative selling. Collaboration adds another level onto consultation because collaboration adds the part that we're doing it together.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's the key. Prospects don't want to be sold to. And often I find it interesting. There's multiple times in a week where I get to listen to recorded sales conversations from advisors. And then I help dissect them and coach them on that. And one of the things that, happens is the prospect comes into it. And even if they're open, right? They've made the appointment, they're looking for what's out there to help them, et cetera. They still come in with buyer behaviors, right? Like their hands up a little bit. I've got to be cautious. I don't want to be sold to, et cetera. And so, when the advisor breaks that down very quickly in the conversation to show that they're in it together, we're going to get a shared objective. They're going to lay out how this is going to work, et cetera. That's really helpful. But the collaboration also is, so in listening to these, a lot of advisors work with professionals who are successful. And so they know stuff too, right? And they know themselves and their situation better than the advisor does. So in collaboration, it's about finding out where they're at as far as level of knowledge, experience level, experiences, and then not overselling, but meeting them where they're at. And that is, to me, is different than consultative selling, where the premise is I'm consulting because I know more. We do know more maybe on the financial aspects, but we don't know more about them than they do.
Right. Okay. That's awesome. I really like that style and I like that explanation. So now I'm curious, who influenced you in your sales journey? Do you have any sales mentors or people that you like to read over and over again? Who are some of these people that you look up to?
So I have so many sales mentors in my background and that's how I finally in my late 20s was like, this is not a bad thing, And so the first one, and this is so old school, but Ron Willingham, and I know a lot of advisors know him. Ron Willingham's book was Integrity Selling, and I believe it came out in the 70s. I actually loved him so much. I became a distributor of his training materials for 10 years.
Oh,
That's how
cool.
I started my consulting practice. He is the first person that really helped me realize that selling isn't something you do to somebody, it's something you're doing with somebody. And so all of his old stuff, and it's funny, he's got so many books on integrity selling, People by You, etc. And recently an advisor who's in his 30s said something, and he goes, oh yeah, there's this guy and there's a book and it's about mindset around selling. He goes, I read that book, once a year to help me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I knew him. He just passed away a couple of years ago. So Ron Willingham is one of them. And then I'm privileged because I focus so much in the sales area. I belong to a group of fabulous women sales consultants that all have great things. And then, there's a, it's just a constant thing that I'm doing. But Ron Willingham was my first.
That's a cool story. I really do like that. And you mentioned the book. You have a pretty cool book behind you titled Conversations That Sell. Do you know the author of that book?
I do, because I am her. And what's cool about it is I'm actually working on Conversations That Sell for financial advisors. That's going to come out next year. And it's so fun putting it together because, I've worked with tens of thousands of advisors at this point. And now over these last 7 years, instead of doing large groups, I do more intimate groups. I do more one-on-one coaching. And I am having so much fun with putting together the examples and the best practices that are specific to this type of sale that is such a human sale, right? You're talking about people's finances, which is a driver to everything else they do. And I always laugh that when we're talking about their finances, hopefully it's, not the most important thing to them, but it's definitely in the top 3 to 5 in someone's life. And so it's been fun to be able to be this targeted and provide this resource that's going to come out that just speaks directly to advisors.
So even though that book is coming out, Financial Advisors, I want you to go to Amazon and I want you to type in Conversations That Sell and buy the book. Come on, it can't be that expensive. I think it's like $8.99. I bought it.
Depending on what version you're getting. Yeah,
it's something like that. It's not going to break the bank. Please stop being cheap and get the darn book right now.
And it's a how-to for leading this conversation. It's what it is. It's all the, how to start a conversation, it's all there, but it's all there.
Right. And it's something that financial advisors can read, implement, and just use in their business right away. But I do want to give them some things that they can use right away in this podcast also. What are some of the most common mistakes that you see financial advisors making when selling?
Yeah. So again, going to selling being the conversion, let's talk about the conversion conversation, the mistakes within the conversion conversation. The first one, videos I'm recording today, is about preparation, the most boring topic. Everyone rolls their eyes like, yeah, la, 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 la. But doing the right type of prep. And that includes outlining the flow of the conversation, not a script. I don't believe scripts because scripts means this is what you must do, but your prospects don't have a script. And so it's really hard to do that. But an outline of the conversation flow that allows you to be present, adjust, and be their guide through that process. So they don't prepare for the right thing, and that's guiding that conversation. That's one big mistake. In the conversation, it's funny because there are stages to a good conversation. And so at each of them, starting the conversation by just jumping into business, or some advisors actually spend too long doing personal talk and not getting to the business.
Yep. That's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. I could tell from how we started today that you're like, let's get to the business. So starting the conversation and not being purposeful at getting to a joint objective, setting up collaboration, which means connecting with them at the level they need so that you've earned the right for the rest of the conversation, being collaborative and open flow of information, both ways, etc. So that's a big mistake. The other part, then the next part would be in the investigation as we're exploring what's going on and looking for how can we help them. Because I get to listen to all these conversations. I know this for truth, is so much focusing on facts and data of situations instead of the impact of the situation. So I say, we do need to know data and facts about today and tomorrow, what's going on, what do they want to go on, but the risk and reward information, the impact about those, that's where the value of your service is. And that often isn't discussed. So then that leads to the next mistake, starting to talk about all that you do, the how-tos, the process, the tools. I 2 weeks ago watched a Zoom meeting, and the advisor was like, I could tell she knew she was fumbling. And she's like, you know what? And we use this great tool called Right Capital. Let me pop it up so you can see what it looks like. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they don't care about what this website looks like. So, but we get to that when we haven't learned the impact of what's going on and can speak to that when we're talking about the outcome of working with us. We can get into as much detail as they want if they want it. But what they care about is, can you solve my problem, capture my opportunity, or address the specific wants or needs that I have going on? That's what they're buying, not your fancy process or tools.
That's an amazing answer. And it got me thinking. A few months ago, I did a newsletter issue about some private research that I did, where I had these questions, ran a survey online asking people, why haven't you hired a financial advisor? What would you expect? So on and so forth. The number one reason why people have not hired a financial advisor can be summed up in one word. Now, there are many different responses. It's because of this, because of this, because of this. But the one word that I used to describe all of it was intimidation. How do you think that financial advisors can handle that intimidation where they don't know what to bring, they don't know what to expect, they don't know what they're going to talk about, they don't know the terms, the 401k or Roth IRA, what's the difference? What's a mega backdoor Roth? What's a regular backdoor Roth? They're just intimidated at every step of the process. How can advisors deal with that?
Oh my gosh. So that's part of all of the conversation is, well, first of all, you got to set them up for the conversation. And I strongly recommend that you give them information in advance about what they're going to expect when they talk to you, right? So lots of advisors will do a pre-questionnaire before someone schedules 3 to, 8 questions, but then letting them, hey, we're meeting via Zoom. Like really, whatever we can do to let them take their guard down and know what's coming, then they're better able to focus on things. So to reduce intimidation, letting them know, hey, one advisor, we even said, when you walk in the office, Lisa's smiling face will be there for you. Here's where you should park. Whatever you can do to let them know. It's going to be on Zoom. Hey, if you have pets or kids in the background, it's okay. Or this conversation is going to be so important. It'd be great if you had no distractions when you're there. Be great if both, laying all that out starts taking down the intimidation. And then it's the right sizing, I call it. And that is talking to them at the level that makes sense to them and stopping this stupid industry jargon. Like you just said, my favorite are the F words: fiduciary, fee only, fee based, whatever. Most people have no value associated with those words. The industry gets them, but normal people that aren't in the industry, those have no value to them, but we talk a lot about them like they're this big thing. So
what's interesting is that they will hear this, and what they really want to know is, are you acting in my best interest? Will you do what's right for me? Am I going to be okay? And I think part of the problem or the challenge for financial advisors is that it's the curse of knowledge. They know so much. It's hard to get in that beginner's mind where they can just step back and try to put themselves in the shoes of someone who doesn't know 1/100th of what they know. It's very difficult. But if they can do that, then the sales process will be improved.
Well, and that's what I mean by the right sizing is being able to, in the moment, adjust and not over-explain, not use the jargon, and be able to give them what they need in the way they need it. And there is a skill to that, right? That is identifying, is this person a thinking or feeling person? Like, how do I need to phrase things? What is their level of knowledge about this? And so that's why, upfront, hey, well, what brought you in today, or what made you decide to schedule this, is a great first question. But then asking questions around, well, what have you done around this already? Like, find out, have they done research? I'm amazed at how many people, they come in and they're like, oh yeah, I've been researching this, and they know everything. And advisors often assume that people have read their website, have done this and done that. Well, you can't make that assumption. You've got to ask to find out where they're at, and then you can adjust accordingly.
There's a meme online that says red delicious apples for sale, $2.50 each, available this Wednesday. And there are so many comments to say, what type of apples are they? How much are they? When can I get them? And just these questions, it's in there, right? So the point of that is exactly what you just said, that people don't read. And oh my goodness, if I could figure out how to get people to read, then I would be much wealthier than I am today. So if anybody knows how to do that, please let me know.
Hey, financial advisors. If you'd like even more help building your business, I invite you to subscribe to James's monthly paper and ink newsletter, The James Pollard Inner Circle. When you join today, you'll get more than $1,000 worth of bonuses, including exclusive interviews that aren't available anywhere else. Head on over to theadvisorcoach.com/coaching to learn more.
It seems like your approach is very question heavy. And that's the mark of a true master, because I think that questions equal more results in sales. You mentioned a few questions already. Are there any other questions that you enjoy asking in the sales process?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I would not say it's question heavy. It's question centric. There's a difference. More questions aren't better. The right anchor questions are good, but it's the second and the third question that you ask off that question, that first question, that makes it work, right? That lets them know that you're really trying to understand them. And you're also helping them clarify for themselves. So often, they might give you an answer to a question, but they haven't thought through that impact of that. They haven't, what does it really mean to them? How is that affecting things? If it was fixed, if it was better, if they achieved that goal, what's that? They haven't thought all that through. Or sometimes people do think that, but then they haven't backed it up into the others. So our ability, again, it's question centric, but it shouldn't be heavy, because it's an information exchange.
That makes sense to me.
So other questions, right? It depends on the situation. I would say we use the 4 points. You need to ask questions about their current situation. You need to ask questions about what is it that they're wanting. And often the question, and I know it's in a lot of questionnaires, like, well, what's going to make a good relationship with a financial advisor? It sounds like a great question, but you're counting on them to know what that could look like.
Right.
They might have no real thing that I don't know, somebody that, it takes. It's a question that you're putting on them to try to figure out what's going to be valuable to them, but they might not even have any idea of the real value that you can bring. So it's not really a fair question, I think. That's probably a very unpopular opinion.
Well, that's part of where the intimidation comes from. And that was revealed in the research that I did, where people don't have a clue. I mean, they know that they think financial advisor equals someone who helps with money, but they don't know what helps with money means. They don't know if it means investing or savings or budgeting or college planning and nursing home. There are so many different paths that a financial advisor or financial planner can take that just people don't know what they don't know. Exactly. Is the best way I can put it.
Exactly. So they come in not knowing how to buy what you're selling. So they're coming in as a buyer for what they're used to, what their experience is. And that's why, all right, I've got to be careful. And I want to ask for data. I want to ask for referrals right up front, or reviews. Because that's what they would do if they were buying a TV or a car or a laptop or something. And so that's where, again, what we do from before the conversation to how we start this conversation to set the expectations of this is a conversation to, whatever the objective is, to identify, your situation, whether my expertise is going to be a match with it. If the time is right, then we can talk about how we would work together, what that looks like, and what you can expect from that. And then we can, based on that, often objections, concerns come up, but we problem solve through those. We don't handle or overcome them. And then the big thing is getting clarity at the end of the conversation. People can have a great conversation with you. You've given them hope. That's why I said they're looking for hope. Like, is there hope for what I want to do? And that doesn't mean everybody that talks to you is desperate, because they're not. Lots of people are successful. They've got to figure out what to do with their RSUs because they don't want to pay more taxes. They're not in a desperate situation, but they still are looking for something to be different, presumably better. And then you have this great conversation, and then they're left without something specific. All right, you guys want to think it over? That's great. Let me know what you think, or I'll follow up with you next week. It's got to be a whole lot more specific than that. We've got to get to, how important is this to you? What is your timing? How are you going to make the decision about this? Right? Because people don't know how to make the decision to pick an advisor. So if we can help them be a guide to making a good decision, we are giving them such great value up front. And then not leaving the conversation with assumptions and uncertainty, because that leaves them hanging. And in research I've seen over the years, including a few years ago from DFA, it showed that a lot of times why people don't work with advisors, they were never asked.
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
That's an intimidation thing, right?
Yeah. They don't feel comfortable with the whole process. And that's a perfect segue into the next question that I have for you, which is, let's say that a prospective client comes to a financial advisor. Let's say they have a great conversation, or at least it seems like it, but the prospective client is unusually hesitant or skeptical. There's more than usual pushback. How should an advisor navigate that?
Through questions, analogies, and validation. So, any concern, including that, what's the root cause of it, right? Because if you can help them clarify what's underneath that, then you can provide the right information or help. But what happens is they're hesitant, whatever, and the advisor then starts quoting statistics about what the market does. Research shows that if you work with an advisor, blah, 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 like they start giving them information, but that might not be the information that would be helpful to that person. So we have to help them explore what's underneath that hesitation, because they took a step to talk to somebody. So there's something there. But if they can uncover, is it just fear of making a decision? Is it that they're afraid they're going to get taken advantage of because they've heard a story, right? You don't know. So that's why it's such a broad thing. It's helping them clarify what that is, and then being able to provide information.
And I think advisors can do that, like you said, through stories, through validation, through questioning. One thing I would like to stop advisors from doing is to just, when they lay on logic and more logic and more logic, there's actually been research from Gerald Zaltman, and you can just Google this. There has been research that's found that people who have had their brains damaged in the part that generates emotions, meaning they can no longer feel emotions, happy, sad, disgust, pleasure, they cannot make decisions. So without emotion, it is literally impossible for the human brain to make a decision. It cannot happen. I talk about this in one of the webinars that I do. I think it's the email marketing one, because I incorporate emotion into email. But in the sales process, I think advisors need to realize it's not just my theory. It's not an opinion. It's a scientific fact. You just Google emotion, brain, decision, however you need to get the research. It's a real thing. Without emotion in the process, they cannot make a decision.
Exactly. So, but people most people won't think that that's an emotional concern, right? Like the prospect, they just, their hesitation, their, hands up, whatever, they're not going to say, that emotionally, I'm just not getting it. But that's why we have to help them clarify that it's, what are the facts under it? What's the experience under it? What is the emotion under it? And people they do, like you just said, they make decisions emotionally, but support them factually. So that goes back to that question centric. If we don't get the impact and help them understand the impact of what's going on, and then also like the impact for the future, if they do address certain things, if they do have the answers that they need, what's the impact of that? Then we don't have that emotions. They don't feel the emotion to then be confident that, yes, I want to get started on this. I want that to happen. And then if we don't get decisions at the end of the conversation, the emotional connection or enlightenment that has happened, it drops day by day. So if you're like following up with people a month later who didn't make a decision, they don't have an emotional connection to you or to what you talked about them anymore. And so trying to get decisions via email a month later is pretty futile. It's not a high percentage. You've got to get them re-engaged again in a conversation. And so many advisors are like, they feel it's such a waste of time. And I'm like, if they've already taken the time to talk to you, you know you can help them and you know they can afford it, why wouldn't you do the follow-up process that helps them actually get to the decision? And why would you leave them hanging like that? And it's shown that most advisors do one follow-up, maybe two. It's like 80% of people, but most people may need 5.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Big gap there.
Yep.
And the further away it gets, whatever. And so again, why you need to get really specific at the end of your conversation. Okay, you guys are going to think about this. What information will be helpful for you to look at as you're thinking about it together later?
I just sent an email about that yesterday.
Really?
With that question. I was like, what evidence would change your mind? What are you thinking about? What is the process? Let's say that a prospective client leaves that meeting and a financial advisor follows up. What are some of the reasons that you've discovered that a prospective client is still on the fence? Like, what is keeping them from saying yes?
Oh my gosh. So if it's a couple, there's a whole nother dynamic there, right? But if it's an individual, it's that they didn't get the information they needed to be confident. Whatever that information, that I should say, the information and the connection. It's not just information, it's also the connection that they believe you are the right person. They trust you. They feel comfortable in telling you, because people are really vulnerable when they're talking about their finances. Mm-hmm. And so you're the person now that's going to know all their dirty secrets. And that's even for wealthy people. Their dirty secrets are some people don't want people to know how much they have.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I think that, so that's one of the reasons they haven't been asked is a big thing. And they haven't gotten the assurances sometimes of, okay, so once I say yes, then what? Like, then what? So it's a whole process of all of this. Like, we can diagnose specific little things, but it all goes together. What you do before the conversation, how you guide the conversation, and then that end of the conversation cannot be stressed enough. That if we leave it with assumptions, and it doesn't mean we're doing a hard sell and you must make a decision today, but we've got to get clarity on what's going to happen in the making that decision. And so is next Tuesday at 10 o'clock a good time for us to connect, for you to ask final questions and let me know what you've decided? Like, we've got to get specific. It helps them. So people that are more on the reflector, it's a tribal type I talk about, they value people that help them get to the decision, because they'll get stuck in analysis paralysis forever. So like, they need someone to help them with that last part.
I like that you brought up the personality type. It seems that you study these types of people and how the sales process needs to be tailored. I want you to help me. I'm going to be selfish right now. Have you noticed a common personality type or a way that financial advisors like to be sold? So if I want to sell a financial advisor something, what should my approach be?
That's a good question. It depends on the advisor, because there's different ones. There's the analyticals.
Yeah, I think that's the most common.
Yeah. There's two. There's the analyticals, and then there's the people helpers, right? That are just, they're not as analytical, right? They can back up with numbers, but they're all about the relationship. So it sounds like you're already doing it. Whatever you do, you've got to provide the proof and evidence. And even say, you said, hey, if you guys want, go search this. Here's this name. You're letting them know that even though you're not giving them primary source research, which is what I call it, you're letting them know, Google it. I'm not just making this stuff up. So you're speaking their language already.
Okay.
Right. So it's facts, it's evidence, it's examples. That's it. They don't love stories as much. Some do, but they do like good analogies.
There's entire books about like analogies financial advisors could use.
Yes.
My wife says that she is consistently shocked that my approach with financial advisors works, because it's so kooky, kind of so extremes, like push the envelope. It's extreme outcome independence is the way that I describe it to people. And we were talking off the air that I mentioned the book, The Trick to Money is Having Some. That's been my experience. If there's even a smidgen of you just being desperate or needing it or having to make this deal, a classic tactic or strategy in negotiation is the person who needs the deal the least typically wins the deal. And that's been my experience. And I never really view selling as adversarial. Like when we talked about that limiting belief, I can't really relate. I just view it as legitimately serving people. And I have a moral obligation. And again, we talked about that off the air too, like to help people. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just pushing. And it seems pushy to people. I've noticed, how do I say this? I've noticed that it seems pushy to people who do have limiting beliefs about selling. But for the people who are comfortable with selling and realize that it truly is about serving people, then they realize that's what I'm doing. So that's the best way I can describe it.
Well, you brought up something that's really important. And it's why actually my training is called genuine selling. You've got to be you, right? So this is who you are. This is like your personal passion and belief this is what, and the right people are going to be attracted to that. But some people aren't. I'm a softer seller. And so hard whatevers are not going to like the approach of making it what's in it for them, doing everything to make it easy for them to connect specific value, not just here's my pitch, but no, here, Bob, here's what we were talking about. In working together specifically, we're going to be able to do that. And I've got experience in that. And so you've got to be you, and you'll get the right people to work with you. So we've got to adjust to help them get what they need. But if you're doing that disingenuously, I think that's a word, the trust isn't ever going to be there.
That's what I found.
Because you're not you.
Yeah. And my approach is very tongue in cheek also, where I'll casually say something, if you ignore the nearly 5 years of 20-minute a week marketing masterclasses that I have, and if you ignore the 10,000 plus financial advisor conversations that I've had over the years, and if you ignore this company that I built and this company I built, then yeah, I've got nothing. So please ignore this. So that's kind of the approach. It's a little funny, but also I mean it when I say it. And my call to action in an email might be, please, for the love of all that is good and holy, do not click if you are XYZ. So it's like ruthless qualification.
Yeah.
And that you're right. That may not work for everybody, but it has worked for me. Maybe it's worked in spite of me. I don't know. That's just the approach that I have used over the years.
It's who you are. Like you have to bring your personality in, but when you're then working with somebody, like with advisors, like they're working, intimately with people, their personality can't trump their clients.
Right. Exactly.
And even like having a good sales process and leading good conversations, your process will never win out over theirs. And if it does, they're not going to feel good about it, right? That's when they get negative about it. And so one of the things I wrote, and I say this all the time, we all need to adopt best practices, right? That we see. And advisors are notorious for listening to tons of podcasts and going to conferences and reading and da-da-da-da-da. But you can't do it all, right? So you've got to adopt the best ones that fit into the model that you have, the goals that you have, the people you want to work with, and what's comfortable for you, but not what's complacent for you. And then you have to adapt them to best fit. So I can't ever show up and be you, James, right? I can take your best practices and adapt them to me, but I'm never going to be you. And if I try to, it just isn't going to. It doesn't work to get that sub level of emotional connection in a very people-centric business.
One of the things that I tell financial advisors in private, and I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast. I may have mentioned it on a guest episode or something that I did somewhere else. But I think one of the best pieces of advice I can give to marketers is to study sales. Because copywriting is putting sales in print. I talk in copywriting. I act in copywriting. When I insert scarcity and urgency and enthusiasm and everything that I do. So I am talking in copywriting. One of the best pieces of advice that I can give for people in sales is to study marketing, because they have to be blended together. What are your thoughts on how sales and marketing can work together or blend together?
If they're not blending together, I don't see how it works, right? They're not two separate things. They work together. And in it all, both marketing and sales, some people call it smarketing, but that really hasn't
I've never heard that. That's weird. I wouldn't say that.
Oh, it's marketing. It's a term.
Smart marketing. That's what I think. Smart marketing. I don't think of sales and marketing.
It's marketing. Yeah. But if all of it isn't centered in who is it that you want to serve, none of it works, right? So that has to be, all of it has to be centered in that. And then the marketing is about filling your funnel. And so it's filling your funnel with the right people, is even, the bigger challenge that you help with. And then the experience has to feel the same afterwards. So if your marketing style is disconnected from what happens and when they talk to you, it's much harder to convert. So how do they work together? I think it all works together. I think the content is, the indicator of who you are, what you do, the problems that you, et cetera, that sets them up to be more open once they talk to you, and then the conversion. So I don't know if that answered your question, but to me, it should be a seamless, seamless process. Yeah. So people know what to expect. Be consistent.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I do well, and I do well with helping advisors. I've noticed, for example, one of the most successful advisors I know talks about movies, books he's reading in his emails. He talks about things that he's doing with his family, restaurants he's going to, because he's making connections. If he talks about going to Joe Stone Crab in Miami, and he's writing to that geographic location, if he's a financial advisor in Miami, the minute he says that, they now see that he is a financial advisor that goes to restaurants that they go to. He has a similar lifestyle to them. He is not just another advisor in the vast blue ocean of advisors. That sets it up for a conversation, because now they have something to break the ice. And I don't want to give the impression that you should put it in your prospective client's hands to break the ice. You should take the responsibility in the entire process. However, it does reduce that intimidation, because now when they meet with you, they can ask, hey, when was the last time you went to Joe's Stone Crab? Or Joe's Stone Crab is awesome, isn't it? And it's just one little itty bitty thing that just makes a world of difference.
That's that genuine part of it, right? Because people will say, do you work with people on B2B sales or B2C sales? And I'm like, it's all P2P. It's person to person. It's a human thing. That's what we're doing. It's human. So, yeah.
Babies sell mama on getting the bottle. Wives sell husbands on taking out the trash. It all happens. It's all sales. I was just saying something big. Everybody says prostitution is the oldest profession. I'm sorry, sales is. Eve got Adam to bite the apple, right? Yeah. Right. She had to sell him on the idea. Well, this has been an amazing episode. I wish we could go 2 or 3 hours more. Maybe I'll have you back in the future, because we have a lot more to talk about. For financial advisors who want to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is to go to the website, www.salesproinsider.com. And you can do a contact me and reach out that way. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah. Or actually, you can just email me, Nancy@salesproinsider.com. Send me a message.
You heard her, Nancy at salesproinsider.com, salesproinsider.com. And don't forget, what did I tell you earlier in the podcast, financial advisors? Where are you going to go and what are you going to do? You're going to go to Amazon and you're going to get Conversations That Sell. You have the time, you're going to read the book, you have the money, you're going to buy it. So thank you so much, Nancy. I appreciate this. And thank you, financial advisors, for listening to this episode. I will catch you next week.
This is the podcastfactory.com.